Hey guys, Brad Clark here.
And Chris Bazzelli.
And I know things are a little strange right now with the coronavirus and everybody staying at home. Many of you are probably wondering, as far as exercises go, what are the most important ones that I should be doing?
Well, if you haven't been following our video series, here are 5 exercises you can be doing right now without ever leaving your house.
And then when you can leave your house, you can go back to buying your shirts at Gymboree like Chris. Okay, the first exercise that we're going to go over is the squat. Now this one is my personal favorite. Why is the squat so important? Well, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, you're not going to find an exercise that recruits more muscle mass per single exercise than the squat. It's great for building overall total body strength, and it also mimics real world movements, things like getting up out of a chair, getting up out of a car, those kind of things. So Buzz is going to show us what the squat looks like. I'm going to go into a little more in-depth conversation about what I'm looking for in terms of form when we look at the squat, more so than we probably have in previous videos. And hopefully you guys can start adding this right away to the exercises that you're doing. So it's Chris's setup. We're going to see that his feet are about shoulder width apart. You can go a little bit more narrow, you can go a little bit more wide, but this is a good starting spot. What you'll notice too are his toes are pointed out slightly. The reason that's important is because when we squat, we want our knees to track outwards. We do not want our knees to track inwards, especially if you are a female. It can be very dangerous for our knees, our hips. We always want the knees to be tracking outwards. So show us what a wrong squat would look like. This is where the knees are caving in. Puts a lot of stress, especially on the outside part of the knee. Now, a good squat would be where the knees are tracking out over the toes. Show us one of those. Perfect. Now, as far as depth goes, why don't you look that way, Buzz? What I'm looking for in terms of depth is that the top of the hip gets to at least the height of the kneecap. So go ahead and go down and hold it for me. So what we want is for this upper part of the leg to be parallel to the floor. You can come on up. Another thing that we're looking for is a neutral spine. We're not looking for a craned or angled spine or neck. So go ahead and go back down, hold the bottom for me. See how Buzz's back is nice and flat here? There's not a rounding or anything like that. And the head is not staring straight up into the ceiling. Everything is in line perfectly. Come back up. One last point, because there is some contention on this in terms of where you want to feel the pressure in your foot when you squat. I always coach, you want to feel it right in the midline of the foot. We don't want everything's back on our heels because then we can roll back. We don't want everything on our toes either because then we can roll forward. Middle of the foot. Cool?
Sounds good to me.
Let's go to the next exercise.
All right, exercise number 2. We're going to target our back. This is probably our second largest major muscle group. And all this that we're going to work on today is going to help keep that posture nice and strong, back nice and straight, and help us stay in alignment. So if you have one of those pull-up bars at home that either attach on your door frame, or maybe you're fortunate enough to have a nice gym set up in your basement, pull-ups are a great way to do this. If you don't have access to pull-ups, some sort of bar or fixed structure that you can do an inverted row on is also a good substitute, but many of us don't have any of those things. So what do we have? Well, I know everyone's got a towel at home, so let's put that to use. Brad's going to demonstrate how we do an lying elevated row, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. So you're going to grab your towel, give it a little twirl, make it easier to grab onto.
A little twirl. By twirling, is out of practice.
Then you're going to lie down on the mat on your stomach. You're going to take a grip on that towel about shoulder length apart, maybe a little bit wider like Brad is here. Now once you grab onto that towel, I want you to pull away from your hand. So you're trying to pull that towel apart. That's going to cause tension in your lats and your shoulders. Then Brad's going to raise his chest up off the mat, and he's going to pull his elbows down towards his hips. You should feel a nice, good contraction right in your lats, and then he's going to push that towel back out. So for those of you that are familiar with the gym movement, a lat pull down where you're seated on a machine, pulling that weight down, this is kind of mimicking that motion. It's also mimicking that pull-up. But what we're doing is we're putting some good, strong tension, not just in our lats, but also our low back too, because you got to hold that upper body up.
Standing too.
Brad's going to do it standing as well to show what he's talking about here. So all that tension and that contraction should be felt right underneath those shoulders down there in our lats. Again, this is a great way to mimic those movements that we don't have access to, and it's something very, very good for our posture and just overall health.
Okay, so the next exercise we're going to talk about is a rear delt extension. This one is really important, especially for all of you out there that work at desk jobs and are constantly sitting over a computer all day long. That's really bad for our posture. It's going to cause us to kind of sink inward, round that spine a little bit. This exercise will help take care of that. Open up your chest, improve your posture a little bit. There's a few ways to do this. The first one we're going to look at is going to be with a band. Chris is going to take the band, he's going to hold it straight out in front of him, and all he's going to do with mostly straight arms, you should have a little bit of bend in the elbows, but not much. He's just going to pull it apart, as such. Buzz, I want you to turn around and face the whiteboard for me. So, if we look at Buzz from this angle, what we're going to do, we're going to see, are these rear delts here contracting backwards. Now, Buzz can also do this with dumbbells. All he has to do is take the dumbbells, go ahead and grab the dumbbells for me. Bend over with a flat back parallel to the floor. Just extend again with straight arms outward as such. Now, if you don't have any of these things, you can also do this in a door frame. Simply put your arms against the door frame and get an isometric press backwards. And that's how you do the rear delt extension.
So, exercise number 4. This is going to be actually a stretch rather than a resistance training exercise. And what we're going to target is our hips. These are sometimes the most underutilized areas of our body, even though we're using them every day, if that makes sense to you at home. Because we don't focus on stretching them nearly enough. We focus on the major muscles like our hamstrings, our quads, our back, etc. So let's focus on those hips. First one, I want you to get a nice steady spot to sit. Ideally relatively low, or at least to a point where you can get a 90-degree angle with your knees to those hips. The lower, the better, because that's going to help increase the range of motion for that stretch. So first thing we're going to do is take one foot across the top of the knee, and we're going to use our hands to push down on the inside of that other knee to feel the stretch on that side. I want you to try to push into it. You should feel a little bit of tightness right there. If this isn't enough and you're not feeling that stretch, we can take it to the floor, putting that same knee back, big step forward with that same side, in this case our right foot, and I want you to lean those hips into it until you feel that stretch. Now you might feel a stretch down here on the opposite side too, but either way, we're attacking those hips from both angles here. Again, if this is still not quite enough, you can twist into it, but now we're getting pretty advanced. So I want you just to focus on these. Again, that's the right side, so whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So make sure we hit both. And again, with most stretches, 30 seconds minimum, 60 seconds maximum. The more we can do, the better or looser those areas are going to be, which is going to help us feel better overall.
Okay, so our last exercise that we're going to go over in this video is a reverse crunch. Now the reason this one makes the list is because of a lot of people sitting at desk jobs, or even some of you out there who maybe are heavy lifters doing a lot of squats and deadlifts. Anterior pelvic tilt is a problem. Now, I realize that's a big couple of words. But what that is when our pelvis starts to tilt forward. A good indicator of that is some low back pain. The reason the reverse crunches are important is because it will help strengthen the lower section of our abdominal region, which then in turn will take that pelvis that is now tilted this way, and it will help lift it forward. So we're in a much more neutral position. For those of you who are looking to look nice and lean in their shirts, this can help. There's one. This can help because if you have a lot of anterior pelvic tilt, it really has a tendency to make you stick that belly out a little bit farther. Getting those hips back to neutral will help relax some of that. So there's a billion different ways you can do a reverse crunch. The big thing is we wanted to go over why they're so important. Chris can just do a simple knee to chest reverse crunch where all he's doing is rolling his hips up. If that's too easy, he can do a straight leg lift. So his legs will be straight out, and he's going to rotate the back again, just pulling those hips up off the ground. Any kind of variation of these are fine, but what you're looking to do is some kind of an exercise that targets that lower abdominal region.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Let's do on the mat, everybody. There's a nice spot. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, sure. I think
I need something for the eye. So there you have it. Those are the 5 exercises that we think are most important to you right now while you're at home without having to leave. Remember, it's the squat, some sort of row or pull-up. In this case, we utilized the towel. Then we did the rear delt extensions to hit our upper back and shoulders to help that posture. We did a hip flexor stretch, and then we finished with a reverse crunch.
Hopefully you found this video
Entertaining, funny, something.
entertaining and
Informative.
Entertaining and useful. Motherfucker. I froze. Yeah, okay, go.
I was like, you know, I always remember all those.
Yeah.
So there you have it. The 5 most important exercises that we think you should be doing at home right now without having to leave. And those are the squat, then some sort of row or pull-up. In this case, we utilize the towel. Rear delt extension for our posture. Hip flexor stretch. And then we finish with that reverse crunch.
Hopefully you found this video useful and entertaining. As always, if you need to get a hold of us, you have any suggestions or comments, feel free to shoot us an email. It's right down here, virtualwellness@tryhealth.com. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. But otherwise, I am Brad.
I'm Chris.
And we'll see you in the next one.